Hello everyone. We are Tropical Mix, and this is the Tropicalcast, episode 2. I'm Cullen.
I'm Brett.
Gabe.
And Nathan.
And we make up Tropical Mix. Today, we're talking about our top 5 games from 2021. We're going to go one by one, like one game each, and go around in a circle, and then we'll move on to the next game each. So
It's weird that it already feels like January 2nd.
It is January 2nd, sir.
I mean, I'm saying it feels weird that it is January 2nd.
Okay.
It's gone so quick this year.
Yeah.
It was a quick year, but was 2020 quicker or 2021 quicker?
2020.
In 2020 was quicker for me.
2021 was just like everything before April feels like it was a different year.
Yeah, like 10 years ago almost. Yeah. Alright, let's start with Nathan.
2 questions, Colin.
Yes.
So, do the games on our list have to be, they could be, they're just games we played, they don't have to have been released this year?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And then, just games we played or games that we beat, or both, or it doesn't matter?
It can be both, because, there are some long-ass games in this world. You might never beat them. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I want to start with Nathan.
Alright. Do you want to get some honorable mentions out of the way, or do we want to do those after the first?
I think we can do that after the first.
Alright. So, my number 5 most favorite, top of the line, extravagant, enjoyable, delicious video game of 2021
Dr. Seuss Trimass.
was Dishonored. Dishonored.
Okay.
I played through that, and I had tried it many years ago when it first came out, so I kind of knew a little bit of the lay of the land, or it felt familiar when I jumped back into it this year. And it was just a really fun romp through a really cool world that was, it was grim dark, but it wasn't like, it was a new setting of grim dark where this kind of nautical environment where there's been a lot of history of whaling. I think that's created a lot of problems for the civilization, and there's been some supernatural elements that have tied to that piece of it. And I think that was just a different kind of feeling to have, the environment be like steampunk, but also a mix of like nautical, just maritime coastal city feeling. And I think it meshed well with the characters in the game, characters who were really kind of despicable. I mean, the folks you were assassinating were really despicable, and it was fun to do that. The gameplay was really fun. I think Arcane, I feel like this was, in my mind, their coming out party. To really bring forward, to the forefront, like an immersive sim and how people can do things to create results for themselves in the same world, whether it's in the next level or, just later down the mission path. So I thought that was fun. I think one thing that part of this game taught me this year was to just avoid using wikis and to avoid, being able to see the consequences of your actions. And I think Dishonored is very, very important for that. To when you do actions, when you make choices, you see the effects of what you did. So I think sometimes wikis can spoil that a little bit. I still want to do the DLC. I was just thinking about wanting to clean that up, along with perhaps Spider-Man DLC, maybe in the next couple months here. And so I might jump back into it. I might not. We'll see what time gives me.
So, did you do high chaos or low chaos?
It's low chaos, and I think part of part of it, it goes back to the wiki thing of like where you're trying not to. You have two things that are happening. One, you see a choice that you see a choice in front of you or a decision you have to make in front of you to see what the effects are, and so I think you have to avoid the wiki, but also you get spoiled on things that you've missed beforehand. So that's just my comment. In addition to saying it was a low chaos run, and I didn't really. Maybe I have to play through it again, but I don't. I think the endings may not be that elaborate and may just be good and evil, but I have to look into it.
Yeah, for everyone who here, or who's going to be watching or listening, if you have not tried a Clean Hands or Ghost run in Dishonored, you are missing out. So that's when you don't get seen or kill anyone, and that was one of the most fun things I ever did in gaming.
Mm.
So
Not seen it all. That's crazy.
There's a trophy achievement for it also, the whole game. So it's really fun though. It really challenges you, kind of like what you were saying, Nate. And there's so many different ways you can go about doing anything in Dishonored, as you guys probably know. So I would definitely try that out if you have some time.
I will say that creativity from the unique assassinations were always fun to do, and some of them, I think all of them were non-lethal, all the unique ones. Or I suppose that is kind of the uniqueness about it. It was just that it was non-lethal,
Yeah.
but I guess the outcomes of those assassinations, quote unquote, were really creative, I thought.
It's a brilliant game. You played that this year too, right?
Yep. It's my 6, so
Oh,
didn't quite make the list, but
let's see.
it's close.
Well, anything else to add, Nate, before we move on?
The story was predictable, which is kind of why
Yeah.
one of the turning points was really predictable, and it's what has brought it to number 5 as opposed to above.
Yeah, it's not much story there. Let's be real. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on to Gabe then with his number 5.
My number 5 is Death's Door on Switch, to be more specific. I bought it on Xbox in the spring when it came out, and it just didn't really click for me. But I thought at the time, like, this would be a great Switch game. And then when it was announced for Switch, I bought it instantly. And like it's a game that feels like in a genre of like Metroidvanias and Souls-like games. There's not that many that will like really appeal to me, just based off my own playing style, where I like to not really lose that often or take on that many challenges. I really wanted to like Hollow Knight because I love the world and the art style and the design of it all, but just losing and then losing everything when you lose, having to go back, that was just a lot for me. And then with Souls games, I guess with Hollow Knight 2, it's that challenge that was too challenging for me to really enjoy it. I know it's a good feeling when you do beat that really hard boss, but Death's Door, it's kind of been a blend of those things in a way that suits me, because when you do die, you don't really lose anything, and that's awesome. You just have to go back to the last checkpoint, really, and the world is really cool. It gets both grim but also funny. It's very similar to Courage, the Cowardly Dog, actually, with these really like scary, grim like character like enemy designs, but then with the dialogue is just kind of funny, and the main characters doesn't really talk. And the story seems interesting so far. From like what I gather, you're a person who's doing a job, not really questioning what the job is. You just have to do it. But then I think we're learning that maybe the people above you are kind of, I don't know, they're not good people telling you to do these things. So I'm pretty excited to see where that goes. That's if I beat the game. We'll see if I get to the last boss, if I don't rage quit. For it's pretty hard.
I haven't heard much about that game, but so is it hard like a Dark Souls though? Just more forgiving.
If it's I think it's definitely more forgiving. There is dodge rolls, which I know is a Souls thing.
For my
So you have the bosses and enemies. You have to time your dodges or rolls or with their attacks. From the start of the game, you have 4 like life points, so you can only be hit 4 times. You can expand that throughout the game, but so far, I think it's been kind of sparse as to how much you can expand your health.
Right.
That one. I just bought that in the Xbox sale, and that's been on my to get to list for a while. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it runs better on Xbox. It did run better on Xbox, but it's optimized enough for Switch, and I think it's that caveat you do with a lot of like ports to Switch, like you kind of lose some specs of the game in exchange for the convenience of of playing it on the screen itself.
Well, I mean, most indies that are on both run pretty well on the Switch anyway.
Yeah.
Like Hollow Knight, I can't really tell the difference. I mean, it got an FPS boost on Xbox now, so, but beforehand, like, really, I don't think there was a huge difference between how it played on one versus how it played on the other.
Right.
Well, there is an ever-growing list of Metroidvania Souls games, so
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting to see that one kind of be more forgiving, because I know there's like Death's Gambit, which is very challenging apparently. Salt and Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Hollow Knight's hard as
Hollow Knight.
balls.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them, which is not a bad thing, because Dark Souls is good, and these Metroidvanias are also pretty good. So yeah, I'll have to check it out one day.
Is it on PlayStation?
No
It
idea.
is.
I've heard of it, but I haven't really looked into it, so I don't know.
It got really good reviews when it came out.
And that came out this year?
It came out in March.
Yeah. It came out on Xbox and in the spring, and Switch, PlayStation, I think PC.
PC came to PC same time Xbox.
Alright, well, let's move on to you.
Alright, my number 5 this year was... Sorry, I had to look at my list and rearrange it a little bit. Kiwami 2.
Oh,
Sorry, Yakuza Kiwami 2.
alright.
I started Yakuza last year. I started with 0 and I hated it. And then I moved on to Kiwami 1. Loved it, beat it, went back, beat Kiwami 0, or Yakuza 0. Kiwami 2, though, it took a while to get used to because it's on a different engine. But honestly, the engine's way fucking nicer than the 0 engine was. Like, you can go in between buildings without having to load and stuff. Combat took a while because you went from like 4 different styles to just like one overall style. But I thought it was really good. The story had a lot of holy shit moments in it that, like, when they happen, it kind of like makes sense if you think about it. Like, they were building up to it, but like I was just so enamored with the story that it caught me off guard. And then it's a Yakuza game, so there's like 50 million side things to do, and if you do that, honestly, you could easily get 100 plus hours out of the game. So I had to stop doing the what's it called with the girls, the like bars.
The phone?
No,
they all
the
have
hostess
okay.
like thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Them.
I was doing that for like a good 6 hours, and I'm like, I need to stop and
It's
go
so
back to the
addicting.
story.
It's so simple, but so addicting.
And then, Kiro's still just complete badass. The new characters I thought were pretty good, and they brought back characters from 0 and Kiwami 1, so yeah, it was a really good game.
Would you two recommend watching like a quick recap video about 0 and Kiwami before jumping into Kiwami 2?
I think all the games have a recap in them. I'm pretty sure.
They might, honestly, like I think I finished Kiwami 1 in like December of last year, and then I picked 0 right up back after, and I beat that in like January, so those were still pretty fresh on my mind. But if you haven't played them in a while, yeah, I would check a recap out, yeah.
I was gonna say that it's interesting that you said you played that Hostess like part for like 6 hours, because when that was introduced the first time in the game as part of like a story mission,
Yeah.
I couldn't wait for it to be over.
See, I didn't like it at
That
first.
side stuff I don't really like.
See, it kind of sucks at first because you're like, well, I just want to get to the actual like story, you know?
Yeah.
But you could get more girls from like the sub stories and stuff, and like eventually just get more. So the more girls you got, the better it would get, and the more money you would make. And like I was upgrading girls, I was going out getting new ones, and like I looked at the clocks and it was like 6 hours later, and I'm like, yo, I need to get back on this story, otherwise I'm not gonna stop doing this. So, but I felt like that way in 0. Like I started the, like when you're buying territories in that one area.
Real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, the real estate. I started and I'm like, this kind of sucks, and then I did it more, and it was fine until I had to like defend my territories or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go back and do the story.
Honestly, this kind of sounds weird, but I feel like almost everything they introduce, I kind of disliked at first. Like, remember doing the first combat in like the back alley in 0, and you only had the brawler style, and it was just so slow and boring because you had no abilities. But then once you play a little more and you unlock, just even a couple more moves for brawler before you even get rush or what's the other one? I don't remember the other style, but it was just.
You're talking about the yellow one?
Yeah.
Bruiser?
Was it Bruiser?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Then once you switch, and you can switch in between fighting, and it's just really nice. So, but yeah, the first few fights were really painful because it was so slow and boring. So I think that's why it turned you off kind of at first too.
Even just the story was slow to begin with, so I was kind of like,
The story is slow until Majima gets introduced for 1 whole hour straight. Yeah.
Fighting, brawler, rush, beast.
Beast was the big one. I only use that for boss fights. You just pick up the table that's next to somebody and just beat the shit out of them with it.
Yeah. Speaking of boss fights, did you also have a really hard time with, like, I think it was maybe the first time you fight Goda. It's like outside of like the head.
Yeah, dude.
I
okay.
Watching when you did that.
Dude, I was getting so frustrated, but like there were items in the bushes you could run to, and like I just kept doing that and just.
Alright.
Yeah, that was a good ass game. I also think the soundtrack in that one is underrated.
I remember liking the soundtrack, yeah.
Even like they got Sim to make 2 songs for it, which was pretty cool. I still listen to those songs.
Nice.
Also, if you guys didn't know, they actually had Japanese like film writers write the story for that game.
No way.
Which is kind of why it was a little more.
Back when it came out.
Yeah, the first time, obviously. It's kind of why it was like more dramatic and kind of movie-like, I guess. So, pretty cool. Anything else to add? No. Okay.
Well, besides the fact that I wish they would go and redo 3, 4, and 5, because I tried 3 right after, and oh my god.
3 is just probably the worst one, though. So.
See, I don't want to skip it though.
My number 5 was 13 Sentinels. I don't know how to say this word. I guess is
Aegis?
Aegis. Yeah. I don't know. That's a weird word. Thank you. So, has anyone played that yet? Anybody? No. See, it kind of flew under the radar, like, to everyone in the whole wide world. So it's a mix between like a visual novel, and then the other half is like a real-time strategy kind of, where you're kind of like in a Gundam suit basically, and then you just shoot little tiny robots. Sometimes there's big robots, but it also does time travel really interestingly. And the story was like phenomenal, actually. So there's like 13 characters. That's why it's called that. And then they kind of like lock the characters until you progress enough in other characters' stories. So you can't just do one person because then it'll kind of give away parts of other people's stories because they do intertwine. And then, like, if you get bored of doing the visual novel part, you can go and do some of the battles. And once you get bored of the battles, you can go back to the visual novel thing. But everyone had a pretty interesting story, and I feel like I connected with all of the characters pretty well. It's made by Vanillaware. You guys probably don't know any of their games off the top of your head, but they made a Dragon's Crown, Nate. Played that a little. I think you played that with us a little bit.
Did I?
It was like the Amazonian woman.
Yeah. Okay,
Side-scrolling beat 'em
yeah,
up.
Yeah,
Side-scrolling
I remember
beat 'em
that
up.
well, yeah.
Pretty cool graphics, yeah. So I think if you guys catch it on a sale, I think you should definitely check
It's
it
on
out.
Switch also.
I think it's on Switch now too, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was good.
I've heard that the story is better than the gameplay. Would you say that's true?
I think the story is top notch, but I also did like the gameplay a lot because I didn't find it super hard, but it was pretty fun to just like you can level up the characters and their abilities, and then like just choosing which pilots to bring out with you because you can only bring like 6 out. And then there's like some challenges. Every mission has a challenge, or 2, I mean. So you could be like, only bring out 3 pilots, or only bring out Generation 3 pilots, or stuff like that. Because there's 3 different generations of the like Gundams. The first one is like brawlers only. The second one is like long distance, and the third one is kind of a mixture. And they kind of do mid-range better. So it's pretty interesting trying to do all the challenges and then have. But yeah, I mean, I think the story's a little bit better, but the gameplay was still really good, honestly. Any other questions? No. All right. Well, Nate, why don't you say your honorable mentions and then move on to your.
Well, why don't we get through our 5?
Fine.
Is that what we were gonna do?
I'm gonna go to number 4 here. Number 4 would be Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I was pleasantly surprised how much I actually liked playing an open world game, especially with the Assassin's Creed label on it. I think with Unity and the games beforehand, I felt like the open world design was slowly declining in quality, and I was actually pretty I was surprised, and I thought the way that the game made you want to actually do a lot of the open world activities, although they were repeatable, a lot of them were really unique, and I think just were in theme with the game. I think also this game did really well more so than other Assassin's Creed games, and how your character interacted with historical figures. So you're interacting with like Charles Dickens and Darwin and Karl Marx in this game, and you're even in one of the DLCs you're playing as Jack the Ripper, which it was really, I felt like slight departure in where you're playing as an actual historical figure, which I don't think has happened in the other Assassin's Creed games.
Nope.
The story was actually pretty good, and it felt satisfying to kind of climb through the ranks of doing your assassinations of the targets eventually until you got to the top dog. Yeah, it was a good open world game, and I think I think I put it at number 4 because it kind of has made me rethink about open world games and the choices that we're making to decide which activities to do and which are not important to do, or important meaning maybe not pushing us toward a certain progression track that we like, or it's just an activity that we hate doing. So I think it's definitely helped me rethink open world games a little bit, and I didn't think I would get that from this game.
Did you play Jacob or
Evie.
It depended on the activity. Most of most missions that required stealth would be Evie. I think a lot of her skills were lined up with more of a stealth build, but at the end of the day, once you put out all of your experience and the points into the skill tree, both characters are gameplay wise pretty much the same. I think between the two characters, Evie was much more subtle, and she seemed like just a kinder person overall, whereas Jacob was really blunt and just aggressive. And I think they also had it where Jacob was a character who wanted to lead the gang to take over London, whereas Evie was much more concerned with the whole hunt the Templars, find the Piece of Eden kind of bit. So I think they did well to kind of make sure both those characters were distinct. But gameplay wise, probably Evie. I think Evie had a better saunter. Like I think about like all of the assassins we played over the years, and I think everyone has like a unique walk, because you're always like the camera's right behind the person. You're like, oh, Connor kind of has his shoulders like going left to right, and Ezio's is like arms just like waving. But like I really liked Evie's kind of gait this time. It's such a weird thing to comment on in a video game, but in Assassin's Creed, you're always that camera's right over the shoulders, and you can. It's just, I think both of those characters were really well done.
I didn't finish the game, but for what I wanted to say about it was, I think that was the last great Assassin's Creed game. I know a lot of people would be mad at that, but the newer, like, Dark Souls-y ones...
Was the next one Origins?
Yeah. The newer Dark Souls-y-ish ones, I really just didn't get into at all.
I'm going to get into Origins sometime this year, and I'm a little bit kind of bracing for the idea of like the history of Assassin's Creed has always been in a city, and Origins and the games there on out are just gonna be like huge open worlds, and I wonder if the new gameplay elements, like how you're commenting on, Colin, if that's gonna be too much of a distraction, or is it just gonna be following a typical adventure RPG kind of mold?
It's very much an adventure RPG.
Yeah.
With Assassin's Creed as like the title. Like it's.
Yeah.
I played probably 15 hours of Origins, and it's just not what I. Okay, like I will admit, like Assassin's Creed was getting stale, but at the same point, like I'm playing it to be like an assassin, and like I mean, you can play the newer games stealthy, but like it's just so open that it's harder to be stealthy, and
not as fun either.
I didn't like it.
I guess we'll find out your answer next January, eh?
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 1 a year.
That's all we can handle anyway.
Yeah.
Alright, Gabe?
My number 4, Horizon Zero Dawn. I feel like there's not much I can say about this since I've already played the game. This is the second time I played it. What was different this time was that I played it in 4K, so it looked gorgeous, both on my TV and also on my phone, which I would stream occasionally. And yeah, what a game! Like, it just seems to have all the different things that appeal to me, just like come together, like a good narrative, some kind of sci-fi stuff with robot animals, like combat with like arrows, like that, like that's just so cool. And like Ashley Birch is Aloy to me, and I think her performance, like the second time around, seeing her like go from where she started to where she was at the end of the game, like it was just like she really sells it, and I'm just so stoked to see more of her story in the next game. And I played the DLC for the first time, the Frozen Wilds. It's basically just more of the same game, but there's a lot of snow. I guess there's more of a tease into the new game too. Also, Lance Reddick, he's so good in that game. I can't wait to see more of him too.
I need to go back and platinum that before the second one comes out next month, but good luck with that.
Easy platinum.
Yeah, but it's gotta go get some collectibles, which is my least favorite thing. So, Nate, have you finished that game?
I have not. No. But I've thought about it a lot recently. It might be something I get into upcoming.
Yep. And you haven't even started it. Alright.
It's not a Breck game, I don't think.
It's very not. I mean, I played it a little when you were playing it, but I mean, to me, it just feels like the new Tomb Raider games, but you're fighting robots, which is not a bad thing because the new Tomb Raider games are fun. It's just not something I've really gotten into. So,
I feel like a lot of people have said that. I mean, I can see why they might think that, but it's not really that similar. Like, it's definitely way more combat oriented, and there's so many different.
Oh yeah, no.
There's so many. I know, yeah.
That just watching you play, I could tell that was. But I mean, like the core gameplay, I thought was pretty similar just from the bits I played. But
so I think, Gabe, you put the next one in your most anticipated list, right?
I did. I think playing it in 4K kind of sold me on not being too sad about not being able to get the PS5 in time to play it on the PS5.
Yeah.
Because if it looks as good as it did in 4K on my PS4 Pro, I'll be like totally happy with it.
Honestly, it'll probably look even better because I think they fixed a lot of the motion capture issues. Not that it was bad,
Okay.
but like just the way the faces looked.
The faces
Yeah.
and like the dialogue scenes.
Yeah. Right.
all right, my number 4 is a game Cullen is currently playing, Hades. Honestly, I don't think I've played a roguelike before this because to me the idea of like having to reset and lose everything if I die, like I feel like I get really angry from that. Like the closest thing I've had to that would be like, like Hollow Knight if you're doing a run and you die, or like playing Lasso in Halo where you have to restart the mission if you die.
And Dark Souls losing all your souls.
Dark Souls 2, yeah. But I was gonna pick it up on Switch, and then at E3 they announced it was coming to Game Pass, so I was like, well, I'll wait for it then. And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, obviously the main core of the roguelite is there where you die, you reset, but there's so many bonuses that you can get that, like, transition every run, and then like the keepsakes were really nice. Especially like once you start figuring out which of the gods fit your playstyle more, and like the boons that you get from them. You can start off with those. I thought the music was great. Like the music when like you're in a room and it's Chiron, the boat keeper, and he's like selling stuff. Like when you were playing the other day, like that music was stuck in my head.
And every area has its own cool theme.
Yeah, the areas are varied, and like I don't think they keep any same enemies between.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Except like the bosses in the first, some of the bosses in the first area are like just regular enemies in the second area, but each area is varied. All the bosses play incredibly differently. I think all the characters were really good too. I can't think of one character I did. Well, the one guy who like as you come out of the river, like when you die, I forgot his name.
That was a girl.
It's a guy. I didn't really like him, but like everyone else was good. All the voice acting was really good.
Which game are you talking about?
Hades.
Oh, yeah.
The main character is cool. And honestly, like it took me. I don't know how many runs I did before I beat it the first time, but as soon as I beat it the first time, I literally went and did another run. Like, yeah, it was just lots of fun. And then like watching him play it, like I'm like, I kind of want to go back and play that again, even though I beat it. Like,
it's just so fun.
It is fun. I think I've beat like 4 or 5 runs now. I'm trying to do it with the different weapons. Not like I'm not gonna do it with the weapons I hate. Like I hated playing the bow, and honestly, I didn't think the shield was that fun either. But the rest of them were all pretty good. There were definitely like some gods that I definitely preferred over others. Like Ares was probably my go-to just for the amount of damage you could get from his stuff. But like, what's the wine god?
Dionysus.
Anytime a Dionysus came up, I skipped that room. So I mean, there were definitely some that I was kind of like, whatever. But yeah, it was really fun. And then I beat it the first time, and I bought the game even though it's still on Game Pass, because I'm like, this is something I will probably go back to every now and again.
I agree with what you said, but I'll get more into that later. My number 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, there's this big notion in this video game world right now that everything has to be an open world and a 100-hour game, and I think Guardians of the Galaxy proved that you don't need to do that. It's kind of playing it was kind of like a Uncharted kind of game. Like it's a little open, but like there's different little branches you can go to get collectibles or whatever. But for the most part, you're just kind of going to a specific place to do a specific thing, and it kind of very the old Uncharted, at least from the PS3, which, and again, it's like 15 hours. I think I platinumed it, something like that. So you don't always need to be playing this long game. So I think it's really cool that people are still making AAA games that you can just play in like a weekend and an extra day, because not everyone has time to be doing that. It was also just very well done. The voice acting and the motion capture is amazing. Some of looking at Drax specifically sometimes, it just looks incredibly realistic. Especially his facial animations. That goes for all of them, but just maybe because he's bald and doesn't have like
Bald.
doesn't have much going on in his face. Maybe it was just a little more pronounced. Also, the fact that you have all these different costumes and they don't really like degrade the quality of the characters, if that makes sense. Like they all look really well done, and really high quality. All of the outfits. The story was pretty cool. The banter between all the characters was amazing. They like to argue and bicker all the time, and it was pretty funny. I had some interesting concepts. The huddle up, to get that power boost for a little bit. While also playing an 80s rock song was pretty fun. But I know I told you guys this, but after hearing "Turn Up the Radio" for like the millionth time, it kind of got quite annoying. But it's a good song, but it's yeah. And then the gameplay started out kind of boring, kind of like Yakuza. We were just talking about that. Because you don't have any abilities, you're just shooting a gun, and then you have to do the reload thing, where you get the fast shooting for a second. But once you start getting all the abilities, and you can stack them, and then you get the Guardian's abilities, and you can just do these crazy ass combos. It gets really fun. And then that ending scene after you beat the final boss, it's not a credit scene before the credits, but just you'll know when you get there. It was just extremely cool, and like I think that's an amazing way to end a game. So I don't want to spoil it, but that was something else, honestly. Have any of you played that? You did. All right. Nice.
You haven't seen the movies, right? So you had no...
Yeah, I actually don't like watching movies, so
Interesting.
the last Marvel movie I watched... Okay, well, I haven't seen either of the Guardians. I've watched the Spider-Mans, except for the new animated one and the new one that just came out. I haven't watched that. I watched the first two Avengers, and I don't even remember anything else because there's like a bajillion... Like, who asked for Marvel's Eternals? Anybody?
Well, I mean, originally people were saying that about Guardians also.
I know,
so...
but I've at least heard of Guardians of the Galaxy. I'd never heard of Marvel Eternals until
I never heard of
I saw it.
Guardians before the movie came out.
I had heard of it, but my friends are like comic book nerds and whatnot, so... I mean, yeah. But, so I'll probably go back and watch those at some point, but I just don't like sitting down for an hour and a half, 2 hours and watching a movie, really.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on what you said about the banter between the characters, because pretty much at like any time in the game, there's somebody talking.
Yeah.
They're having a conversation, and I'm just like shocked at the amount of lines that were like done for this game.
Yeah.
Because I played for I think my playtime was probably 15 hours like you. Yeah, that's like 15 hours of characters constantly talking to each other. But I guess it's just like part of like the world building that they were doing in the character building.
So there wasn't like any like repeat dialogue?
No, almost none. Maybe none at all. Like if you go into if you go search for like a collectible like off the beaten path, they'd be like, Quinn over here, and then they start talking trash about him, and then like yeah, and then like you go back and Rocket would be like, if you hadn't done this and a blah 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 and your fucking girlfriend, and then it was just really cool. And then the banter between the Queen and Drax was so amazing. That was something else too. That's a good ass game.
I might need
That was Crystal Dynamics, right?
Yeah.
No, that was
Eidos.
Montreal. Yeah, whatever. However the hell you say it.
That's right.
Montreal. They did the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. This was a big step up from that.
Yeah.
Which that was a good game, but this was a big step up from that, I think. And the PS5 version is also like it's a very good like upgrade, and it was free, so that's cool as well.
Nice.
So if they make a sequel, I'll probably pre-order it honestly because that was a good game.
Number 3.
Premiere.
World premiere.
What happened what happened to your voice, sir? Were you smoking?
Just a slight hiccup. Number 3 for me would be Spider-Man 2018. Now,
That was 4 years ago almost.
yeah. Computer generated New York was so beautiful, and it was it was a treat to just like swing around New York, Manhattan, and so with that piece out of the way, there's also how I don't know how Insomniac just how they put together a Spider-Man video game felt to me not authentic, but perhaps just genuine enjoyment for all the people out there who've have had some desire to climb up a wall in a building, and I think that it just did that. So it executed it so well, and it had a great story to boot, and you really felt like you were on a roller coaster. You were in a Spider-Man story arc. That because of the visuals, it felt like realistic, and it felt like it was like a Marvel movie. But at the same time, you felt like there was some real comic authenticity behind the framing of the game. So I was really blown away. It was a really fun game. It respected your time with such a great story that was straightforward, and it had some open world activities, but I think all those activities kind of added to the characters, like Peter's dedication to Harry Osborn's like scientific efforts that he had left behind, that for the most part were really like beneficial to the city.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, and it felt like they're kind of building something, a relationship we didn't see in the game, but just how much Peter Parker respected and loved Harry as a friend. And I think even though I had the story spoiled to me back in 2018 on a Twitch stream, even though I knew what was coming, like the whole story was just great, and the boss fight or the final fight was just something else. It was almost surreal to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm swinging around in circles and circles and circles. If those who played the game know that I'm talking about the final fight, but it just, I don't know. I think about it. It certainly has been the best superhero game I've ever played, and it will. I think perhaps there's been already some talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think it's really great that superhero brand, whatever it is, it's been actually a strong theme in games for a while. I think a lot of people think of the blunders of like Batman Begins back in the GameCube, or some of the other offshoots. But think of the Arkham series, you think of Spider-Man, and now Guardian of the Galaxy. I think there's a lot of people out there who are doing right by these superheroes.
I just want to say, I think you can really tell, like, Insomniac, like, they're like, okay, we can make a Spider-Man game, so it, like, really put all of their, like, you can tell it was really a passion project for them, with the amount of, like, even, like you said, all the side things, like, built something to the city, or to Spider-Man or Peter, and they really, it wasn't like they were just shooing it in to get a Spider-Man game out. It was like, you could really tell that they really cared about how people would perceive it, I think, and that kind of also translated into Miles Morales, because they kind of do some interesting, cool stuff too. But I like that they didn't just, oh, we're gonna make a Spider-Man game, we can do whatever we want, and just focus on the main story or whatever.
I will say that picking up pigeons as Spider-Man is actually really fun. There was once upon a time a side activity pick up. I think it was pick up pigeons or some birds in an Assassin's Creed game, and just comparing both of them, it's just Assassin's Creed parkour just seems like utter dog shit in compared to like swinging around Central Park and picking up a pigeon. I don't know. It's definitely
Creed
fell
2.
in line with the kind of game and the kind of hero you are.
Yeah,
And
yeah. 2 had
Really
you
good.
pick up pigeon feathers.
2 questions for you, Nathan. Did you do the puzzles?
I did, and I really loved the puzzles. I don't know. It just clicked the brain with me, or clicked the part of my brain with me. I think the one thing though, the one puzzle that was probably the most frustrating was the spectrometer ones. You had to line up the lines. Those took probably the most effort, but I remember the routing puzzles. Those clicked with me. I remember.
I think that was my least favorite part, but they were still fun. I just kind of got annoyed by like the end, and there were like a bunch of them, and they were like super long, and I was like, oh, come on. I just want to go be Spider-Man.
I will say though, I think the design of that laboratory offered a lot to how I enjoyed those puzzles. Like it just felt like so cool to hang out in this laboratory and even just to explore it, see all the notes that are written. I was so shocked how detailed that game was.
Yeah.
And all of the character building, world building they put into it. Like, and even how it progressed over time as the storyline changed, you could see different notes and things that, you know, in the laboratory, or I suppose like even in the, I think in the homeless shelter, I can't remember what it was called, but there was like a progression that was marked like by characters and how whether they were maybe declining or, you know, what their trajectory was. And it always felt like just a chore to look at, or a treat to look at all the details.
That's a game I need to get to because I love Spider-Man, and Insomniac's probably one of my top 3 developers, if not my favorite one currently. And like, yeah, I don't know. I think at the time I was playing it, I was just like, this combat's not as refined as Arkham was, because I mean, Arkham Asylum was like one of my top 10 games probably. And the combat in it just feels so good. And I think in Spider-Man, I just didn't give it enough of a chance.
Your turn anyway. Your turn.
Yeah. Try it out.
Your turn.
Is there any games?
I think it's my turn.
Goes Nate game.
Gabe, I profusely apologize.
You are forgiven. My number 3 is Life is Strange: True Colors. Definitely my favorite game of the franchise or series. I think one because it is the most grounded in the sense that the ones before the main character had like superpowers. The first game it was time travel. Second game it was telekinesis, and in this game it's kind of like the main character can read people's emotions, and the way it was used in the game just felt more grounded and not as like supernatural as the previous games, which I think led well to where the narrative was, which just felt very condensed in a small town in Colorado, just kind of like the politics of the town's history and its citizens, and how somebody from the outside kind of comes in to unravel it all. And I really like the main character, Alex Chen. I think she felt like the most down to earth like main character we've seen in this series. Like somebody I would want to like hang out with. Yeah, and I thought like the gameplay, chapter to a chapter, where there's like a main like objective, I thought was like consistent. Like it didn't felt like it like dragged on. It was paced super well. Yeah, it was good.
I have yet to finish any of those games.
So
Gabe, what would you say is the most alluring element of those games? Like sometimes I hear people say it's the story, sometimes people say it's the characters, or how the characters' gifts or talents kind of can affect the gameplay. What's the most like? What draws you in the most?
I think it's that it shows you that the choices you do make in the game do have consequences. So that kind of forces you to kind of become more invested in the characters, and if you know that your choices you make for them could be bad or good.
Have you decided to replay a game, or was it a game or the series, a series where you'd often like reload saves?
Oh, I don't have any plans to replay them because I feel like if I did play them again, like my brain would just just make the same choices I did in the first playthrough. And yeah, I like never played to like see other choices or replayed to see the other choices. I would just watch YouTube videos of those playthroughs with those choices.
So, I need to know, what are your thoughts on then remastering those two games, the first two? Considering they're not like combat oriented or anything, so I'm trying to figure out why they're remastering this game.
Well, yeah, like the first two, so it was one, and then it was a prequel to one,
Yeah.
the first game. Like the graphics of the engine that they use kind of looks wonky. Like it doesn't really age well.
Yeah.
But like Life is Strange 2 doesn't look that much different from the first game, in my opinion. So they should just do that one too.
So is the new one a different engine then?
Yeah, it looks so nice. Like it still has that like strange kind of aesthetic, but like the lighting and the shadows just gets.
Well,
my number 3 was actually my number 1 up until end of October. And that was Dragon Age Inquisition. I will have to say that when this game came out, I hated it with every being in my body. Just because, like, after Dragon Age Origins, which I really enjoyed, and then 2, where they refined the combat, and there were some parts of it that were worse, but it kind of got me used to... You have a bunch of different areas in these games, but they're pretty linear going through them, and there's not, like, a whole bunch of openness to it. Which was nice, because then, like, compare that to, like, Skyrim, there's not this vastly huge world you can get lost in. You can kind of focus on the stories, on the characters, what you're doing. And Inquisition opened it up a lot, where you still have a bunch of different areas, but now there are these huge... You can spend 45 minutes walking around in this just one zone. And there's a bunch of, like, side stuff that is just kind of filling that world. That's how I viewed it the first time I played it, and I didn't like it. And then also, whenever you would level up, you didn't get to choose where your stats were going. Which I kind of like to play like a two-handed warrior in these games, so I would put them all in basically strength and dexterity, so I could just be a walking tank. But in this game, it randomly assigns the stats for you when you level up, so I didn't like it. I've tried it on and off since it came out in 2013, and the reason I went back to it was Nate played that. Was that last year you played that?
2 years ago.
Or
now.
2 years?
Inquisition?
Yeah.
No, it was this year.
That was this year? Oh.
Mm-hmm. It was at the beginning of the year.
Oh. Well,
Time
yeah.
flies.
It does. January of last year now feels like it was like 2 years ago. So yeah, I picked it up because you were playing it again, and I love the Dragon Age world. So, giving it more of a chance and like slowly, the more in the story you get, it opens up and like you kind of understand why they made these changes. You're like the leader of this organization, the Inquisition. So all this side stuff is helping build up your Inquisition so you can get more forces, or you can spend more points to go get more resources or more allies, that kind of thing. So it actually makes sense. And then I still think the areas are still a little too big, because there were parts where I'm walking from one mission to another and it's like a good 3-4 minutes of walking with maybe some enemies in there that you have to fight. But like once you get stronger, it starts opening up, and like they actually like made like the dragons in this game were actually like hard as shit, and actual like bosses versus like there's been a few dragons in the other games that were actually like hard, like the one in the first game where you're up on the mountain and you have to ring the gong. Do you remember that, Nate? Yeah, so like, but this game, like, they're unique. They each had their own ways you kind of had to go about fighting them, and they were actually worth getting to that point. And then like the crafting was pretty good. There were lots of returning characters. Some of them I was alright on. Other ones were actually really good. Like Iron Bull was probably one of my favorite characters in the series. The story was... There were parts of it I liked. I think making the main villain from the second game's like a side DLC was kind of like, but I mean they made it work. They kind of incorporated everything and made it actually feel like it was like a world threat versus, you know, this has only consequences on like a certain group or whatever. And yeah, it was actually, I'd probably put 70 hours into it, I think. I played through the DLCs and I like the setup they're doing for 4. And yeah, I probably won't go back. Probably won't go back to it, but
you only did 70 hours.
I didn't do every like side mission, and for a while I was collecting like all the shards, and like I didn't even finish that one temple in the Oasis area.
No, shards are the worst.
Yeah. Well, just like some of them, like, because the climbing in that game's kind of dingy, and there's some where like you're like, okay, there's no realistic way for me to get up to this, and you have to like just keep jumping up the mountain and hope that you get up to it. But yeah, it was good. I'm excited for 4.
That they announced 18 years ago. Yeah. Nate, anything to add since you played that this year?
It's going to be my number 2, so I will talk about it there.
Spoilers.
Alright. My number 3 was Hades. Is Hades. Was? I don't know.
It is.
So, kind of going back, to what you said. I think part of the reason it works for people who don't like roguelites is the setting. So, like, let's say it was the exact same game, but instead of having, Hades and Zeus and all these people, they were just random people. Do you think you would care about it as much? Like, it would still be fun.
It'd be harder to care more about the characters, but
Because, I mean, everyone knows Greek gods, like, at least somewhat, at least the main ones, right? You learn those in, like, elementary school or something, middle school, whatever. So, I think that was a brilliant, like, design from them. So that's part of the reason, like, and then, what else? So yeah, I mean, part of the fun is also just going through a run, and you never know what you're gonna get. You know, when you do Dark Souls, you get to choose what you want to do, right? You can do a naked run with only your fists, or you can grind and have 99 magic or whatever. You just spam magic. But in Hades, you really don't know what you're gonna get. You could get, actually, my second run, which you're watching, I got to like the third area boss.
He beat. Gabe, you've played it, right? Yeah, he beat Hydra his first try.
Yeah, but I got really,
nice.
I think I got pretty lucky with the rolls I got. I got this one where what was that attack called? Was the third attack? Was it like a stab or something? I don't remember exactly.
The
thrust. It would do like plus 300% damage or something.
Nice.
So like if I was just spamming that basically, because it would do like 300 damage, which would kill almost everything instantly. And then I kept leveling that up, and then I had Poseidon's dash, which was pretty useful. But then, like, after I lost that run to the third area bosses, I kind of got fucked with my next two runs, and so I kind of had to put it down for a little bit. So that's but that's the beauty of it, you know, you get a really good one, and then you get two shitty ones. It's still fun to play even with shitty ones, but then you can't really do much, like, if you don't have something good going on. But I'm actually going to play a lot more of that. And my plan is to get to Platinum, because that's what I do.
Good luck on that one.
It'll take a while, but it'll be enjoyable. You know, I've grinded Tomb Raider multiplayer solo. I did Fall Guys. What did I just do? I did fucking Vice City. Yeah. So I've done some unfun Platinum, so this will actually be a fun one, even if it's a long one, so that's pretty fun. I did play a little bit of Bastion when it came out. That's by the same people. It was on PlayStation Plus when it came out, right when the PS4 launched almost. So, but at that point I didn't really know what a roguelite was, so I didn't really enjoy it. So since I technically still have it, I might go back to it at some point. But
yeah,
I think Hades has probably done a lot of good for the roguelite genre, because a lot of people who weren't into it are probably like more understanding with it, and will probably check out a few other games because of it.
I think you should try Bastion. It's not a roguelike, though.
Yeah, they make different
I-
style stuff.
I was under the impression they were all somewhat similar, though. I don't know. That's just what I saw somewhere.
you should play Transistor too.
I do have that too from PlayStation Plus. So.
And then listen to the soundtrack for 2 days straight.
Yeah.
We'll see. But first is Hades. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my number 2 is Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm in agreement with everything that Brett said. I also would say Dragon Age Inquisition was the best book I read this year.
That's why I only had 70 hours.
Yeah, I put in 170 hours.
Oh god.
So
a lot of it was reading, and I think that's because Inquisition, I think more than the other 2 games, really expands the lore of the world. I was just overwhelmed by how much like codex entries and notes you would read, and I think all of them just really added to the history of the world, which in turn, once you got through the DLCs, you really kind of you really wanted to know what was going to happen in the next game that's coming out. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of lore that's scattered through these large worlds that Brett was talking about, and even with the change in the world design, which I agree with Brett, like it takes a lot of adjustment, and you have to kind of identify what to maybe focus on, in the time that you spend. So, but to add to that, I mean, going through these worlds, they're carried by a really great epic story, I think. Again, agreeing with Brett, like I think the villain was kind of borrowed from another. It is borrowed from another part in the games, but I think part of that didn't really make it feel like a new super bad villain, but one that you had faced before. But regardless of that, I felt like the storyline was really epic, and I think really picked up the pace after your Inquisition had left the initial base, and you went to Skyhold, which is like the second base, which is just much more well designed and just a cool place to explore than the previous one. Previous being a village called Haven. So after you leave Haven, I thought the story picked up pretty quickly after that. Also to comment, I think the companion quests were really, really good. And the companions themselves, I don't think there was a companion I didn't like. Everybody was really unique. And everybody had depth to them. I echo Brett. Like Iron Bull is really like a cool character because he does a little bit of not subverting expectation, but he just, the way his character goes off, especially with the companion quest, just really fleshes out his character in a way that you wouldn't expect when you look at him. But you also know that while you play Dragon Age, like people, like there's just a strong emphasis on cultures in the game, and a lot of that was also explored too. And I think that it just really did a great job of exploring his culture, or this companion's culture, but also like how he was, his culture is not a monolith, and his character was kind of just a departure from what a lot of people thought his race was. And then the other companions, I thought Sarah, Brett, I hated Sarah at first. Like, she's just like, the things that she says are so crazy and wacky, but the more you use her, and oh my god, she's so OP. Like, she's just got a really cool written lines.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And all the locales are really great. I mean, it was really different from most Dragon Age games. Like I think about like you go to the palace and you do the ball thing, the Winter Palace thing.
That was one of my favorite missions, I think, in any game. Like it was just so unique.
Yeah, you had to kind of identify. It was just a really cool sandbox to have dialogue with other characters and figure out different pathways to solve the mission, and you had to make sure you had the right like approval with different factions. I mean, but it was really a unique mission. So really great game, very good RPG. Combat was still good, and I echo Brett. Like I hate that they robbed the ability for us to choose attributes and stuff like that. But you could still do some pretty cool, like the combat was satisfying.
Was that a launch title?
It was 2013.
14.
14. So
it was 14.
It was pretty close. One of the cool things about like Dragon Age is that they would let you like import your saves and decisions you made in like the previous game into the new one. So like you could do that from Origins to 2. And then with the new systems, what they let you do was like make I forgot what it's called, Dragon's Keep or something like that. It was like a website that you went in and, and you were like, okay, this is what I did in this part, this is what I did in this part. So my original playthrough back in 2013 I imported my characters, but I never got far in that file. I don't know if Keep still works or not.
It
Cause
did. I mean, I think it does.
it worked for you. I couldn't get it to work for me, so I went in with like a fresh world. But you get to this one point in the game where the character from 2 shows up, and someone else who was in a previous game would be like in that section of the story with him. And I was messaging Nate about it, and I got this one character from 2, but his was from the first game. So just seeing all these choices could bring different outcomes into playthroughs is really cool.
I have not played a Dragon Age game.
You should. They're fun. I don't think
I haven't either.
1 has aged amazingly. So like if we got like how they did Mass Effect Legendary Edition and they kind of touched up the first game. I think if we got like a Dragon Age version of that, that would be cool.
Also, Frostbite looks really good in that game.
It does.
But Dragon Age Origins has half of the Uncharted cast.
That is true. You literally get them in scenes together, and you're like, that's Chloe and that's Flynn. Good Flynn, not Australian Flynn.
Can't believe they've done that. I actually forgot about that. Actually, side note, since I got this tattoo, I've been having dreams Uncharted multiplayer has been working, and then I wake up really sad. I'm like,
That's
it's like,
hilarious.
I'm like, Kaylee, let's play Uncharted, and she's like, okay, and then we start playing, and then it's never gonna happen again.
Nightmare.
Barbecue.
I can't say that here. Spawn, wait.
Pam!
Yeah, classics. Bring it back. God dang it.
That's those factions.
Yeah, we need that too. I'm gonna spend so many hours in that.
Just take a week off like I did for Halo.
Well, if they fucking announced a date, I probably would. Alright, Gabe, it is your turn. I didn't forget you this time.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. My number 2 is Chicory, a colorful tale. This is what you call a cozy game, my friends. You get a cup of cocoa, snuggle with your blanket next to TV with your controller. You play this game. It's gonna make you hella cozy. If you don't know what this game is,
No idea.
there's Chicory. She's like the guardian of this land, who wields this paintbrush. And then there's this janitor that kind of works for Chicory. And then one day the world loses its color, and somehow the brush finds its way into the hands of this janitor, who's also kind of a super fan of Chicory. And it kind of falls on this dog's shoulders to bring the color back to the world. And when I first started to play this game, I just thought it was just like a cutesy game, like you just like paint the world. There's like Zelda elements of like dungeons and getting abilities to like get to the next area. But then like the more I played, the more it surprised me with its themes that it was tackling, which include themes of like failed dreams, and like aspirations, and how you cope with that, and themes of like not being who you think people see you as, and yeah, I found myself painting less of the world the more I went through the story, because I just wanted to know what was going to happen next. And the boss battles were super dope. Like, if you were to have watched like a boss battle, like a gameplay on YouTube on Ute, it would look kind of silly, but it's the music that makes the boss battles look not as silly, because really it's just like a simple like drawing, of like I don't know, it's just like a creature, and then you have to use your paintbrush to attack it. But it's the music that makes that simple concept just so epic, and yeah, I think it's a game I will replay for like years to come.
It sounds. I mean, granted, I haven't played it, but it sounds kind of Okami-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it wasn't like that compared to Zelda, kind of.
It
Yeah.
was.
You can do some painting, which is why they put it on the Wii.
That was in the Indie Direct we watched, right?
It was, yeah. But it was in like a little montage.
Interesting.
It's only $20 on the eShop and PS4. So if you have not played it, go play it.
All right. Yeah, I don't even know if I had heard of that, honestly. But I see your turn.
Alright. My number 4?
2.
2? Yeah, I knew that.
Lower.
I knew that. My number 2 was Kingdom Hearts 2. We'll talk about it in honorable mentions, but I had never beat the first Kingdom Hearts. I played it as a kid, and at that time I didn't really play RPGs besides Pokemon. So I never got... I got to the final... No, I think I got to the Behemoth in the original PS2 version. And that took me like... I don't even know how many tries because I was so underleveled when I got to that area. But when Sora was announced for Smash, I was like, I should play these games. So I went back and I beat the first Kingdom Hearts, and it was way easier than I remembered just because I knew what I was doing now. And I played I started the second one. I think the story is a whole lot better. There's a lot more going on in it, with different like groups and stuff. They introduce like new forms, like Valor form is, oh my god, so fun to play. The worlds, I think at first, so like the worlds actually have like more than one like story part of it, and I think the first few worlds, like I didn't know that, like I did the Beast world and Mulan's world, and it wasn't very long, and I was like, that's kind of it for this world, like because I was going under the assumption they were like the first one where once you kind of beat the story there, you were done on there, unless you had to go back for items to synthesize or whatever. But actually having to go back to planets and there's like a new story and like a new boss and whatnot was actually really cool. Most of the characters that returned were good. A bunch of the levels, the newer levels, like the Lion King world, I was actually kind of surprised how well they made Sora as a lion play. The Gummy Ship missions, I think, were way better. And they actually unlocked cool stuff. The final villain was very anime-like, like the first game, but I think it played a lot better, and I don't want to spoil the story, but like some of the character things you find out like towards the end of the game were really cool. And I did skip Chain of Memories, so I probably missed some story stuff and motivations, but for the most part, I thought it was really good.
What did you think of the tutorial part of the game?
Okay, honestly, I remember that being a slog the first time I started to, and like everyone talks about like it just being really boring.
14 hours.
Honestly, I think I beat it in like 5 or 6. Like, it wasn't nearly as bad as people talk about it. Obviously, if you're wanting to get back into Sora's story right away, it's kind of like whatever, but like I think it was necessary. And it kind of built up some characters, and you find some stuff out, and then, yeah. I didn't think it was that bad.
Right. My number 2 was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Gorgeous visuals, of course. Ratchet and Clank's always kind of done that. The gameplay was super fun, obviously. If you've played Ratchet and Clank, you know exactly what you're getting. I think the story was pretty cool. Having 2 playable characters was a little different, even though they play basically the same. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if you've played a Ratchet and Clank, you know what you're getting. It's just a fun game you can beat in a weekend. With you don't have to think too much. You don't have to try very hard. You just get a bunch of cool weapons and kill things in high definition and like Pixar-like visuals, as they always say. I do have a few gripes with it. Like, I think at this point the gameplay is kind of getting a little stale. Like, they've made like 14 Ratchet and Clank games, something like that. I don't know. They've made quite a few. And the gameplay has basically always been the same, besides Secret Agent Clank, I guess. And not that they need to like super change it up, but you know, I like it's kind of a positive but kind of a negative. You know exactly what you're getting with Ratchet and Clank. And also another thing that I didn't really like was there was like no new weapons really. Like, they took a lot of weapons from the Future series, which I really like those weapons, but you know, you think for your first Ratchet and Clank game in 5 years, and your first one on a next generation console, you like get some more weapons and maybe some really crazy ones to showcase the PS5's power. But again, the traversing worlds instantly is really cool. I hope they continue to do that somehow in the next Ratchet and Clank. I'm sure they will. Also like that they're finally exploring a little bit more of the Lombax history. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's kind of interesting that they get to do that. Because, again, for 20 years now, we've known basically nothing about the Lombaxes. Just a little bit here and there in a few games. But so, good game. But they should probably change it up a little bit for the next game.
How would you rank it compared to other games?
I think it'd be like slightly below A Crack in Time, which is, I would say like the top 4 in no order. Just it's too much of a hassle at this very moment. Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, Tools of Destruction, and A Crack in Time are like the top 4. So it'd be slightly below that, so it's still a very good game. Another gripe is they need to get rid of Dr. Nefarious. Or just not, he doesn't need to be the main villain in every single Ratchet and Clank game. So, what's that one we did? All for One? Was he playable in that, or was he just a side villain? I don't remember.
All for One was playable. That's the really bad one.
Oh yeah, okay.
Full Frontal.
Frontal.
He wasn't even. Yeah, I don't think.
Was he in the last cutscene or something?
I don't know.
There was one game I played this year, or maybe last year, that he wasn't in the game at all until like the last cutscene, and then it was kind of a funny cutscene. But you know, like, I don't mind. I like him as a character, but I don't think he needs to be the main villain in every single Ratchet and Clank game at this point. Especially like Insomniac is so creative that they could easily create someone to be a better villain at this point. And none of you guys have a PS5, so none of you have really played that. Well, you played a little bit of it. Oh, that's another game that starts out really slow, I think, actually.
Yeah, that's how I was feeling, but I just haven't gone back to it yet.
All right. Well, let's get to Nathaniel's number one.
Number one for me, I think after last year when we did our Game of the Year discussion, I don't know what I was playing or what I was, I guess, working on at the time. But as for a game, but I just felt like like a really strong push to just choose a game that has had so much clamor about it and so much talking and just has created a culture around it. So I played Undertale, and Undertale is the most like is number one for me because it's the most memorable game that I've played, and I think it's something that if you don't know anything about it going in, I mean, I think there are some things that people have heard about, like the gameplay of how people can resolve conflict and the pacifist endings that people can do. And those are all really unique things and just a unique twist to how RPGs handle combat. But there's something about that game that has. I think this is a game that literally started the buzzword of subverting expectations. You play that game and you think you have a story that you understand in front of you, and it's not like this huge plot twist that comes out of nowhere that, oh, this person is your father or whatever. Yeah, but it completely turns you up on your head about what a video game is, and I mean, that's what I'll say it is. I don't think it's the best video game of all time, but I think it's definitely the most memorable to me. And anyone who experiences it is gonna have an interesting time, a memorable time. I don't know if people really enjoy it. I think some people may find it slow or a little bit odd or eccentric, but when you get to the conclusion or the other conclusions, you really feel like you've experienced something that is quite unlike what you've played before. The music is also really great. There's a particular song called Heartache, and it's just a song that I would imagine anybody who's heard that song but doesn't know what it's from could maybe not even know the title of the song, but feel like this tug in their heart. Like that music really spoke to me in a way that not much other video game soundtracks have done. So it's the game out of the 5 that I said here that I would recommend to you 3. I don't think the other games. I think the other 4 games that I've said today are games that I think you should probably have some kind of, I mean, not experience with it, but you have some desire to play those games. But I don't think everybody has that for the games I listed, except for Undertale. I think Undertale is just an experience I would recommend people to try. It's a short game. It's a game that has kind of humor that I think, if there's anything that I would put a warning about, is the humor can be really. I think only people. It's just the humor that I don't think would catch everybody. Some jokes I thought were funny. Some I didn't think were so funny. But I don't know. There's not much else I could say. I think I don't know if it deserves all the craze that it did and the subcultures it created and the fandom that it created. I'm not sure if it deserves that, so to speak, but it definitely deserves first place for me, because it's just completely memorable and it deviates from what the standard is, or the different standards we've seen in the video game industry.
Do you need to get all the playthroughs or endings to understand what's going on, or
No. I think what I've understood is that one playthrough will be enough for a mindfuck.
Okay. Because I think that's on Game Pass, so I could give that a try.
Where'd you play it on, Nathan? Which platform?
Steam.
Steam. I have it on
Steam
Switch,
Deck.
and I do want to play it.
Steam
Yeah.
Deck.
Do y'all here know about the gameplay or how you fight monsters?
I've started the game like 3 times, so I do.
Are you,
What's the farthest you've been?
Yeah, it's like a half hour in. I'm not
Sure.
sure. Yeah.
I haven't touched it yet, but I've seen it in a bunch of videos, kind of like you're saying. It's highly praised and a lot of people recommend. You're probably saying you watch a lot of the same videos. Alright,
I'm gonna really quickly throw out my honorable mentions here.
okay.
One of them is Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is like a pretty brutal dungeon crawler, side-scrolling game. You have characters that you manage that can have stress and have heart attacks. They can develop traits like an obsessive need to masturbate, or like
It's
like
me.
or like necrophilia, or like a need to, like, the only way they can de-stress is by going to pray at the local monastery, the local chapel. So there's like a trait system in there. It's just a really satisfying RPG when you've gone through a dungeon and you survive, but the way that the game throws curveballs at you can seem really brutal. But it's something addictive about it. And then the other honorable mention I have is it's a mobile game. It's called Pirates Outlaws. It's a roguelite deck builder. And didn't think I'd get into deck building until I played this game. And I haven't really gone into building decks, but it scratches the itch. It's the satisfaction that a roguelite can do. So,
Alright. I guess Gabe number 1.
Yeah, I'll share my honorable mentions before I share my number 1. First one is the game called Carto. It's a puzzle story game where you have the power to change the map around you through like tiles. So you have to move the map around to progress in the game. It's super cutesy, but also like challenging in a good way. And then number 2 is The Artful Escape. It's on Game Pass right now. I didn't finish it, but I do plan to. It was something that I've never really experienced in a game before. Just the art style, the story, the dialogue. It was all just it was super weird, but in the best way possible. And yeah, my number 1 game I played this year.
Dramatic water pots.
Yeah, long pause. This game I didn't plan on buying. I was gifted a gift card to Best Buy. I thought it was a good opportunity to get this game because I didn't know if I would like it. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. When I first saw the game, I don't know, like something about me just made it. I thought it was just some kind of cheap money grab. I thought like the characters looked kind of weird, and I just didn't think I would vibe with it. And then just knowing that you can like only play as Star-Lord, I thought it'd make more sense to be able to like switch between characters. But then I got it because I didn't have to really pay for it myself, and then I was just surprised. I think that just how I came into getting it kind of contributed to where I was at in playing the game. They do look like cheap knockoffs of like the MCU versions of those characters, but with like the way like games work, and like you can spend more time with them in this game than like the MCU characters, so that you get to learn more about their characters and what their weaknesses and their strengths. And my thoughts about only being able to play as Star-Lord that like change quickly because the game makes you feel like you are like the leader of this team. So it makes sense that you are the person who commands them. And then there's like elements of like how that plays into the story. It's like super fun. The combat was fun. I like the upgrade system. Yeah, story was a roller coaster. I felt like the pacing was good. We didn't spend too much time in one place. I hope to make more because, yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah, just another thing I want to add. I think they announced that shortly after Avengers either came out or like the beta had come out or something. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but I remember there being a lot of backlash because people thought it was gonna be similar to Avengers. I think.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm pretty sure I thought that too, which is why I wrote it off initially. But then, yeah, seeing the reviews made me want to get it, so I rented it from GameFly. That's how I got it.
Oh, smart. Yeah, I would say that it has the best soundtrack, even over the movies.
I have no reference point for that.
You should watch them.
You should play the game.
I should.
There's something else you said that I forgot to say when I was talking about it, which I don't remember actually. It's kind of awkward. Yeah, I agree. If you have not played Guardians, at least rent it. GameFly is like you get a month free if you want. Otherwise, it's like $10 a month to rent one game at a time. So if you guys, if you don't want to buy $60, $70 games, then actually GameFly is a really good deal. You can even upgrade to $16 a month and get 2 games at a time. So I started doing that.
That's gonna be our first sponsor, isn't it? GameFly.
I'm just trying to give people a way to get a game that they might not be able to buy, or they don't know if they want to buy it. Yeah. So GameFly.
Okay, let's just keep talking about that each episode.
Yeah.
Each podcast. So that
Eventually they'll just be like, "Fuck it, fine." We do your honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'm gonna do those first. I want to talk about 5 of them. I'll be quick on them.
5.
Just because these were all really good games. I mean, we've talked about like 3 of them already. So, Dishonored was my 6th game. I was the opposite of Nate. I did a high chaotic playthrough. Just because like I didn't want to like have to accidentally reset or like Nate said, like use a wiki to figure out like the best way to do it. I did have some missions where I did play it very stealthy. I didn't kill the target or whatever. Some missions it would be like I'd get 3/4 of the way through it just fine, and then like someone would just catch me somewhere, and I'm like, well, I don't want to restart, so I would just finish the mission. It was a very unique, fun game. You kind of think of like sword games, and you don't really think like first person.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird getting used to. It's like if you're playing Assassin's Creed from like a first person view. But the abilities were fun. The different amount of ways you could tackle doing a mission were really fun. Yeah, it was really good. Yakuza 0, like I said, game started off really slow for me, and I skipped to the next one, and then I went back, and honestly, a lot of the times I see a lot of people are like, oh, start with 0, and then other people are like, no, start with Kiwami, and then go back and do 0, and
there's no really right answer, I guess.
Yeah. Like some people say you need 0 to make 1 better because 1's not good, but then other people are like 0's not good and you need 1 to make 0 better. I've seen that a lot online. Honestly, I mean, I could see it going either way, but yeah, that was fun. It was a good introduction to Kiryu and Majima. Honestly, I think in that game, Majima's like portion of the game was just so much more fun to play than Kiryu's was. I think my one thing I didn't like about that was, what was the one boss you had to fight, like,
Kuze.
Kuze. Oh my god. Yeah.
Kuze is good.
The third time you fight him in the fucking sewer, I was like, dude, just stay the fuck down. After that, Kingdom Hearts 1, I mean, I had already played 80% of the game, but really good introduction. Sora was a pretty good character. Riku's a good character. Kyrie's a good character.
Yeah, Riku.
Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Number 10 for me, well, no, I'm skipping over a DLC, but Shining Pearl. I really liked it. It gave me like that warm feeling of playing a Pokemon game that I haven't had in a long time.
Cozy.
Yeah. Like, I knew what to expect, but also it was fun. Like, I felt like I was 8 years old again playing my Game Boy. My main issue with that game is it's a very uninspired remake. It didn't take a lot from Platinum, which is the best version to play that. And, like, all the other remakes added substantial content. Like, Fire Red had the Sevi Islands. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, like, completely expanded the post-game. There was just so much stuff to do in that game. And then Omega Ruby and Sapphire had the Delta episode. And this game just doesn't have any of that. So I'm kind of just like, what to do now? And then last, Shadow of Mordor. I played that early on in the year, and it's a mix between Lord of the Rings, Assassin's Creed, and the Arkham games. Combat's pretty much an Assassin's Creed version of Arkham.
Yeah.
I'm not the hugest Lord of the Rings nerd, but I thought the story was fine, like having seen the movies that have come out. The Nemesis system, I think, could be just a great thing for the gaming industry in general that unfortunately just hasn't.
And apparently they copyrighted it.
Well, they did, which is stupid because I think there's a lot of games that could use that system. But it's just unique. Like, this orc kills you. Well, now he's a captain and he's harder and stuff, and they remember your encounters. I think the only issue I had with the Nemesis system was, like, there was a guy that I killed, and then he comes back later, and his face is just, like, fucked up and deformed, and I'm like, no, I chopped your head off. You should be dead. But that game was really good, and then I want to get to War eventually, but I sank a good amount of hours into that. But my number one, and this is probably not going to come to a surprise to any of you, was Halo Infinite. When the multiplayer dropped randomly, I was kind of mad because I took a week off to play the game when it was supposed to come out. But honestly, like, this...
2 weeks.
Huh?
2 weeks?
It was a week and a half. This is the best Halo has felt since Halo 2, honestly. Like, I mean, I pretty much started at 3. I mean, I played a little bit of 2, like, before 3 had come out, but I didn't really get into Halo until 3. But honestly, like, going back and playing Halo 2 now more because of Master Chief Collection, I think that's, gameplay-wise, just a better game than 3 was. And this feels like a natural evolution of that. Like, I liked Halo 5. I know a lot of people didn't, but, like, that felt like Halo and, like, what a super soldier should feel like. But, like, this game just takes that to a whole other level. And, like, the map design was really good. Customization stuff needs work, and I touched on that in that article I put out. But story-wise, like, once you get past the initial moments where you're like, I don't know what's going on, because, like, the problem with the 343 Halo games has always been, like, you need all this expanded lore to know kind of like what's going on in the stories with these, whereas like the Bungie games were simple. You didn't need any of that outside stuff. So as even someone who reads the books, I didn't read all the books that come out prior to this, but even in the beginning, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I knew who the Banished were and whatnot, but opening Halo up to, like, an open world, like, for me, when, like, that was announced, I was kind of hesitant, because, like, a lot of the open world shooters are just kind of bland and give you meaningless stuff to do, kind of like Far Cry does. And it got a lot of comparisons to Far Cry, but honestly, like, everything you do kind of helps build towards you taking control and everything. And there's optional upgrades to get for Chief, and just the equipment they giving him a grapple hook in this game, and like you can fly around like Spider-Man, like, and just there's so many mountains, and like you can tackle. There's some linear missions, but a lot of it's like set in the open world, and just the amount of variety that you can tackle encounters with enemies you basically can play how you want. Like, you want to walk right up to them, you can do that. You want to go climb up the mountain behind them and snipe them, you can do that. One of my favorite things to do was, like, you have your like base where you can spawn in weapons and vehicles, and I would just get a Warthog, spawn in this one really good sniper, give it to like 5 Marines and load them up in my Warthog, and I would just drive up there and they would just shred everything. But just for me, it feels good. The story starts picking up about halfway through. I do think it ends kind of abruptly, but they want this to be like a 10-year game, so we're gonna get story expansions and stuff. So I think that set that up pretty good. My only major complaint with the campaign is you see one area, and like, even though it's a pretty big sized chunk of area you're playing on, it all kind of looks the same. There's not like it's all forest. There's no desert. There's no snow biomes. Like, it doesn't rain. So it's all kind of similar, but again, that's something they could fix in expansions. Another thing too is Halo's never really been good about boss fights. Like Gabe, you played Halo 2. Like, there was Regret, which you just sat in a chair and you would just go up to him and punch him. And then there was Tartarus at the end, but outside of that, Halo's never really done boss fights good. But this game has a bunch of different bosses, and they're all unique and play differently, and a few of them are in open areas, other ones are like you're in tight corridors, so you really have to strategize about how you fight them. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot that needs fixing, especially on the multiplayer side, and some stuff for the campaign, but I mean, like I said, they want this to be like a 10-year game, so that's all stuff that easily could get fixed, but I just haven't had this much fun playing a game in a while.
Has anyone else played Halo?
Is it your favorite one, you'd say?
I don't know. I have a lot of fond memories of Halo 3 back in middle school, high school.
Yeah, we know.
But
I can't see it, but there's a little Halo.
I think if we're not counting the Master Chief Collection, because I feel like that's kind of cheating.
It's definitely cheating.
I think individually it's top 3 for me. I'd have to give it more time and see how well they respond to how the community feels on it. But yeah, top 3 for me.
And it's on Game Pass. If you're unsure if you like it, you can get a bunch of Game Pass.
The sponsor guy, aren't you?
Yeah.
It just stays on Game Pass forever.
Yeah. Which, again, it's a good deal if you don't know if you want to buy it. You can try it out, and then if you like it, you can still buy it, or you can just keep Game Pass.
And the multiplayer is free to play.
And the multiplayer is free. So,
you don't even need Game Pass for that.
Right. I have 2 honorable mentions. The first one is 9 Monkeys of Shaolin. This game you could beat in 5 hours or something like that. Story doesn't even matter. Just skip it. Or you're not going to remember it even if you tried. Actually, I do remember the first cutscene, but that's it. Everything else after that I don't remember. But the gameplay, you kind of guess what it is, but you're like a monk and you have certain missions from other monks, and you basically go and fight some dudes. You get different weapons. They're all like spear staff things. Spear staffs. But they have different like attributes or special abilities. So it's just it's a pretty fun game. You can just beat in like I said 5 hours. But yeah, it was pretty fun, and I got it for like $3-4, so it was definitely worth it. I think it's on like every platform, so whatever your preference is, you can find it there.
What's it called?
9 Monkeys of Shaolin.
It's on Xbox. I bought it. I just haven't played it yet.
The other one was Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom. This is a new game in the Monster World series from Sega. You all know I'm a big Sega fan, especially older Sega. Now, none of these games I really played besides like a little bit of the PS3 ports of the originals. But this one's more of a Metroidvania, so a lot of exploring and re-exploring and going back and forth to the same areas. But it has a nice little art style, and it was pretty fun. Like, so in the series, you basically take the form of different types of animals. So this one has like snake, pig, lion, dragon, and what's the other one? Remember? I don't remember the other one. But this one, I think unique to this one, you can switch to them at will. So they create a lot of puzzles where you have to switch between one or the other to get to all 100% completion, which takes a little bit of time. I think it took me like 45 hours to platinum this. But yeah, if you like side-scrolling platformers or Metroidvanias, I would definitely check it out. Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom, also on every platform. So, but my number 1 was Deathloop. So anyone take what they like about the combat of Dishonored and then kind of refine it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better, because there's some limitations to what you can do in Deathloop, but refine the combat versus, Dishonored came out in 2012, it's 2021 when this game came out. And then obviously more advanced graphics and whatnot, but so you have a lot of the abilities from Dishonored. There's a blink, there's you can turn invisible, which you can do in Dishonored, and there's some other abilities. You can pick people up and throw them, whatever. So The thing about Deathloop though is you can only pick 2 at a time, so you can't just switch between them at will, like in Dishonored. And then Deathloop also has different areas you can go to, which are, so it's kind of like a mission, and then you can go either during the morning, noon, afternoon, or night, and then the area will slightly change every time, depending on what time of the day you go. Some of them aren't available at certain times, but for the most part, they are pretty much all available every time. And then there's what they call the visionaries, which are the people you have to kill in order to like finish the game. You have to find a way to kill all of them in the same day, in order to beat the game. Another cool thing is they took from like Dark Souls is random people can be Juliana, who would be the invader, and then you guys kind of just fight it out, which is pretty cool. You can turn it off if you don't want to do that, unlike Dark Souls, unless you play offline. So that was a nice feature. And then just, I think really a lot of the fun is just figuring out how you need to piece everything together to kill all 13 people in the same day. And then there's, like Dishonored, there's like many different ways to kill everyone. So it's a really good game. I don't think it's better than Dishonored, but I do think it's definitely worth a playthrough. It's like, again, takes a lot of the best parts about Dishonored and then puts it in a different like time period and aesthetic. So it's pretty cool. And that is our top lists.
That's 2021 in a nutshell. We put it all together in about an hour and a half.
It's been over 2 hours.
Has it been already?
It's
Oh
2
my
hours
gosh, it
and
has
2
been.
minutes. Yeah. We want to thank everyone who watched or listened. So, if you didn't know, we have a podcast, Tropicalcast. Look for the one with the palm tree, because there's another Tropical Cast.
In fact, you're listening to it right now.
Or watching, that's the thing, see. If you're listening, we have a video version of this too on YouTube at Tropical Mix Games. We are on Twitter at, literally at, Tropical Mix Game. And then we're also on Twitch at Tropical Mix Games, in addition to all that. Our website is tropicalmix.co. You can check us there. We have articles there. And, also on, podcast-wise, we're on, like, basically every platform. So whatever you want to use will probably be on there. This is our second episode, so we're gonna be doing some more. We got a couple cool ideas for the next few episodes. But if you guys want to say anything else before we go.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see what 2022 is.
Let's play some kick-ass games.
Yep. Nice. Hopefully you guys got a few new games you could play from us in our list from 2021. But yeah, that was 2021, and hopefully you can play some of those throughout your 2022. So again, thank you, and check us out next time.
Bye bye.
So long, everyone.